record these things. Okay, perfect. There we go. Thank you so much. Okay, I'm gonna share again. Okay, so everyone has a Word document open, everyone has their Mendeley desktop open, and everyone has their references on hand. If everyone has that, then we can start. If there is someone that does not, then please stop me now so we can figure out if you have a problem. Okay, everyone's sorted in. Okay, so I'm just gonna go according to what's on the agenda, and I sort of split it into time slots in terms of how long I thought it would take us to go through each of the parts. So some parts might be a bit longer, some may be a bit shorter. Because you're going to be doing it hands-on as well, it'll also give us some room to just essentially for people to ask questions and then for us to fix whatever problems you may be experiencing. Okay, so the first thing I want to show you is the Mendeley interface, which I'm sure you should have seen by now. Am I sharing the right screen? Everyone can see my Mendeley desktop, right?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. Okay, so this is what your Mendeley desktop should look like right now if you haven't added any references yet. So just to show you the different parts, I mean, it's pretty simple. So in the top left-hand corner, sorry, just one more thing. I'm working on a MacBook. So if you're working on a Windows computer, some things might be a little different. But all of the parts sort of do the same things. So if you don't see what I'm showing you on your computer, then maybe just stop me. But in the top left-hand corner, there's a little add button there. So that's the button we're going to use to add documents, or that we're going to use to add manual references. And so manual references we'll add when we don't actually have a PDF on our computer. So for example, when you're using a website or when you're adding a book that you have a hard copy of, you can't just import it into Mendeley. So you have to then manually fill out all the bibliographical details. So that's just the add button. But you'll see as we walk through the workshop and as we add the references, you know, you'll sort of see how all these buttons work in practice. So then we have folders, and in the left-hand pane over here, you'll see that you can add folders. I'll walk through this pane just now, but you can, some people like to have different folders for different projects. So you can add folders essentially for each different project. And if you add a folder, it'll just sort of come up here and you can name it whatever you want it to. And then you can add specific references to those folders. So you can delete a folder as well using that button, just pressing the minus button. But on the add button there, you'll also see that you can add a folder from there. So there are sort of many ways that you can do this. Then there's the sync button. So there's one thing that I will not show you in this workshop, but Mendeley allows you to add a web importer to your browser. And if you do that, it means that if you have a document open on your browser, you can click the Mendeley button and then your browser will automatically send that that reference to Mendeley. Sometimes if the PDF is open on your browser, it will add the PDF, sometimes it doesn't. I have a very particular way in which I like to add my references, so I don't use the web importer. But if you do use the web importer, this sync button helps you to sync whatever's in your web importer with whatever's on your desktop. And then maybe I should just add another thing. So this app on your desktop is it's an app on your desktop, right? So you don't need an internet connection to access it essentially or to use it. But this, whatever is in your library here on your desktop is also syncing on your Mendeley account that you have online. And if you go to the Mendeley website, you'll be able to log into your account there, but whatever's there will also be here on your desktop, provided that everything is synced. So when you use the web importer, Maybe I should just see if I have one on my Chrome browser. Oh yeah, I do. So it's this little button here. It's the web importer. So if you click the web importer on your browser, then what it's doing is it's sending the reference to your online account, your web account, your Mendeley web account. And then you have to press the sync button on your desktop in order to sync your desktop app with your online account. I don't know if that makes sense. But like I said, we won't be covering the web importer here. But if you do want to install a web importer, you can just go to tools and then say install web importer. And then it'll install that little button on whatever browser you're using. I've only used it with Chrome. I don't know if it works with other browsers. I don't know if there are any questions at this stage on the web importer, but like I said, I won't be covering it. So if you do have a question, you're welcome to ask it now. Okay, nothing on the web importer. Okay, and then there's just a help button essentially to help you with whatever troubleshooting you need. Then I want to show you the left-hand pane over here. So you've got a literature search button, and essentially what the literature search button does is it searches Mendeley's library essentially for whatever literature they have in their library. I don't use this literature search button because I suspect that the documents that will come up here is documents that people who have actually added them to Mendeley would have added on. So I prefer to use something that has a more comprehensive library like Google Scholar or EBSCOhost. But that's essentially what this library is. The nice thing about using this library, though, is that you can just sort of add these references to your library. So you don't necessarily have to use it. Is there a question there? I thought I heard someone. Okay, no question. Okay, so then under my library, so that one that I just showed you, that's Mendeley's library, right? Under my library, you'll have all your documents. And when we add references just now, your documents will appear in this sort of larger window here. The thing about using the folders is that if you add documents to a particular folder, and you just want to see the documents for that folder, then you click on the folder, whatever folder you've created. But if you want to see all the documents in your entire Mendeley library, then you will use all documents. So I generally use all documents because I want to search all my references at once. So if you sort of write a lot in a particular area, you'll start getting to know which authors write on which types of things, and then you'll just want to search your entire library quickly to find those references. But if you're still building up your library, it's useful to segment it if you have time to do that sort of stuff into folders. Then you have a recently added button. That will just be the documents that you recently added. Recently read will be recently read. I don't know how they do that now because Mendeley doesn't have a phone app anymore. Then there's favorites, and you'll see in the library here, there's a little star. So when we add the documents, you can click the little star next to it if you want to add it to your favorites. And then you have my publications. So this is if you've written any publications, you can just sort of drag your papers here, and then Mendeley will pick that up as your publications. And then of course you have your folders. Whichever folders you've created will then show up here, and whichever documents you've put into those folders specifically will go in there. All right, then there's groups. So groups is useful if you are, let's say you're like co-authoring papers with people. I mean, I personally don't use it. I've had colleagues who've added me to groups, but I don't know. I don't think it works the way you want it to work, or maybe we just haven't quite figured it out. But what it also helps you to do is it helps you to share references. So if you, well, one problem with co-authoring and using a reference manager is if you have one person who uses the reference manager and one person who doesn't, if you guys are working on the same document, the references are going to get a little bit messed up. So one thing that you can do is you can create a group for you and your colleague, or you and your colleagues, and you can put whatever references you're using for your particular paper, you can add it into this group, and then it'll come into your library. If you do have a co-author who's using Mendeley and they've put their references into the document and you've put your references into the document, and you want to sort of move the references around or update them, then Mendeley is going to tell you that you don't have their references in your library. So this is what the groups are good for, because then it means that whatever your colleague has put into that, it then automatically sort of goes into your library. But it's also just nice, if people want to, just share the latest readings on something or whatever. Okay, and then there's the trash button, which is obviously where you will find your documents that you deleted. And then underneath that, you'll see an authors button. So currently I don't have any authors here because I don't have any documents in my library at the moment. But this author function and the search bar at the top here is very powerful. And this is the thing that I like about Mendeley. So if you, for instance, have, sometimes, when you get to know the authors, that so-and-so wrote something on a particular subject. If you know who the author is, you can literally click on the author's name here, and then you can search their publications. So then Mendeley doesn't give you your entire library, it just gives you the publications that you have by that particular author, which you can then use. If you don't know who the author is at all, you can just use the search button, and you can search your entire library. And a bit later, I'll log into my account where I have like a full library, and then I'll just show you like how useful the search button is. And then I think that is the entire, I think that's the entire interface. There's also like this little button here for the search, but I'll show you this a bit later if you want to search particular parts of your references. And then I'm sure all of you have seen the tools button where you can install or uninstall your Microsoft Word plugin or your web importer. I don't know if there are any questions at this stage, or if everyone is sort of still together here.
Yes, we're still happy.
All right. Okay, so next to my Mendeley desktop app, I just have my Word document open. And I hope that all of you would have seen where your Mendeley taskbar is by now. So you need to click on the References tab. And then this is what Mendeley would have put into your document. So the one button is a insert or edit citation button. So what the desktop app does is, or what this web, not the web importer, this Word plugin does is it allows Word and Mendeley to communicate with one another. So whatever you have in Mendeley, you can insert in Word, which is what we want, right? But if you don't have anything in your Mendeley desktop app, then you can't put it in your Word document. So let's say you were using your web importer and you use that little button to insert an online reference into your Mendeley library, but you did not click the sync button to make sure that it's in your desktop app, then it means that you can't put that reference into Word, because Word doesn't speak to your online Mendeley account. Word speaks to your offline desktop account. So just make sure that you've synced your library if you are using that web importer. But anyway, this is the insert citation button, which we'll use later to insert a citation. Then there's merge citation. So this would be if you have two citations in two separate brackets and you just want to bring them together into one bracket. You have an undo button, which is just undoes what you did. And then there's a refresh button. So just like the sync button on the Mendeley desktop, sometimes you change a detail on your reference in the desktop app. So let's say you misspelled a particular author's name, or you put in the wrong date, or initially you couldn't find the date, so you did the whole no date thing. But now you have the date and you've imported it into, or you've changed it in your desktop app. If you then click refresh here, then that change will reflect in your Word document, but I'll also show you that later. And then this is like the most beautiful button you will ever see as a researcher, which is insert bibliography. That I'll also show you later. And then there's the open Mendeley button. So if you start working in your Word document, even if you insert a reference and your Mendeley desktop app is closed, then Word will automatically open up your Mendeley desktop app. So you don't have to worry about opening it. It'll happen automatically, but it's just there for, I don't know why they put it there. And then the last thing here is the style. So this is where you can actually change your referencing style. And I'll show you how you can find more referencing styles in Mendeley. But you'll know that most of us use APA and Harvard. So, you know, the most popular ones are usually there. All right, so that's the Word plugin layout and then the desktop app layout. Can we move on to the next item, which is adding files to Mendeley, or are there any questions at this stage?
Odile, can you please assist me here? The Word document that you had opened, right? The Word document that we are working on now.
Yeah.
That you were showing us. How did you open that?
You just open it like you open a normal Word document. It's just a normal document.
Oh, it's a normal Word document?
Yes, but if you have the Mendeley, the Word plugin installed, then it should give you these Mendeley details under the references tab. Do you not have this?
No, I do not have that.
Okay, so what you need to do is you need to go to Mendeley under tools
yes.
and say install the MS Word plugin.
Oh, because it's installed already. Now it says uninstall MS Word plugin.
Okay, so in your Word document, can you go to the references tab?
Document, okay, let me share. Yes.
Then you should have these Mendeley details.
Okay, no, I see them now. Okay, no, it's fine.
Okay.
Thanks.
Perfect. Is everyone comfortable there? Do you have the Word plugin? Is there anyone who does not have the Word plugin? Without it, Mendeley is essentially useless. So make sure you've installed that. All right. So if we are comfortable here, if you're still a little bit lost, that's fine. These things, you know, you sort of get with practice, and you sort of get it as you work with it more. You become more comfortable with the interface and all that. Okay. So next, I am going to move into adding files into Mendeley. So you should have brought a number of files with you. Some of them should be like PDF type documents, and then others should be hard copies, unless you have like ebooks and stuff. So maybe we'll just start with the journal article. I hope that everyone has their journal article, or you know exactly where on your computer it is. So to add a document to your Mendeley library, you can literally click the add button. And then what it'll do is it'll open a window for you to find the document on your desktop. So I have a particular folder on my desktop where I save all my my PDF documents. So it's not this folder. This folder is just for this workshop. But essentially it just means that I know where I save my Mendeley references, so it's not sort of all over the place. So what you can do is you can click on your journal article and click open, or you can just sort of drag it into your Mendeley window if you have the folder open next to you. Sorry, I forgot to show you one extra little detail, which is this little arrow at the bottom here of your Mendeley window. If you haven't seen that, it allows you to see the bibliographical details of your article. This is important. Okay. Okay, so once your document is in, there will be, like, some documents have metadata, right? And Mendeley will try and read that metadata and fill in these details for you. Sometimes all the metadata is not there, and then you have to fill it out for yourself. And other times the details are wrong. So sometimes different articles have like wrong bibliographical details. So then you just got to fix it for yourself. Okay, so I imported this document into my Mendeley library. This was a journal article that I started with. And so I'm just gonna like walk you through this window on the right-hand side here to just show you everything that you need to fill in. And they really are like a lot of things that you can fill in here. But what I want you to think about is the citation style that you are using. What will you require for that citation style? So if you think about APA, for instance, the APA will want the title of the article, it'll want the authors, it'll want the year the article was published, it'll want the issue number, the volume, and then it'll want the pages, and then it'll also want the URL where you got the article. So if you don't actually put these details in here and you insert this reference into Word, then it'll be missing details essentially. So whatever's in here is what Word will read from when you import this reference into your document. But anyway, I'm just going to walk you through it from the top. So I'm just going to open this document by double clicking. This is the article that I imported into Mendeley. So the first thing is the type of document. And because this is a journal article, Mendeley will see that it's a journal article. Sometimes it is a journal article and Mendeley doesn't know. So then you actually have to change this type. And you'll also see that if you change this type, it also changes the different types of entries that come up. So just make sure that you sort of have the right type of document, or you've put it as the right type of document. Another reason why this is important is because you'll know that different referencing styles reference different types of documents differently, right? So there's a particular style for books, there's a particular style for journal articles. So if you tell Mendeley this is a book and it's not a book, when you put this into your Word document, it's going to read it as a book and take the details from your library as if it is a book. So just make sure that your type is correct. And then as a general rule, sometimes you don't know what type of document it is, or sometimes there's nothing in this list that matches the type of document you have. What I do as a rule is I put it in as a report, because that's sort of like a very generic type of thing. Then at least I know, the URL will come out and all that stuff. So because this is a journal article, I click journal article. Then very important is the title. You need to make sure that Mendeley has put in the title. You need to make sure that Mendeley has put in the title correctly. You'll obviously be able to see that on your article. If you have like different spaces and stuff in your title, that's exactly how it's going to come out in Word. So make sure that you've put it in here correctly. Then the next thing is the authors. So you can either write out the full names of the authors, or you can just put in the initials. If they do have full names, then I prefer putting in the full names, because once your library starts growing, you'll inevitably start finding authors that have the same surname. And sometimes you'll even come across people who have the same initials. So if you've only put in initials and the authors have the same names, or they have the same surname and the same initials, then Mendeley is going to pick it up as a single author. So when you go to your author list at the bottom here, then Mendeley is going to think that's one person. So you want to put in as much detail about the author as you can up front, so that Mendeley doesn't sort of, get confused. But anyway, so the first author here is... Nkume, do you mind muting your self?
Yeah, let me do that. It's fine.
Okay. So the first author here is J. Sophia Nam. So her surname is Nam. So what you need to do in Mendeley is you need to put in the surname and then put a comma. So everything after the comma, Mendeley will then read as names and not as surnames. And this will be important because remember when you reference in text, Mendeley only uses the surname. So it's important that you put the comma so that Mendeley knows where the surname ends and where the names start. So I'm just gonna put a space here. Otherwise, Mendeley is not gonna see two different initials. And then the second author, if you want to add another author, you just click the enter button. If you put them in the same line, Mendeley won't be able to see that these are two authors, and it's going to think that it's just one author with a really long name. So make sure that you've clicked enter to add the second name. So you'll see that Mendeley also gives you guidance here where it says last name, comma, first names. So if your first names are not like in italics, it means that Mendeley is going to read it as a surname. So make sure that the first names come out in italics and that you've put in the names of the authors correctly. Okay, so the next item is the journal name. So this journal name is here because we've listed this as a journal article. If it wasn't a journal article, this entry wouldn't be here. So here we can see that the name of the journal is Journal of Vocational Behavior. Mendeley's already picked that up. So it's put that in there for me. And then this is a 2019 article, which Mendeley has already picked up on. And then the volume is 115. Okay, so then sometimes in these documents, you won't be able to see the issue number, which is not like the biggest problem because most journals will maybe only have one issue a year, especially if it's an annual journal, so then it won't matter that much. If you do have the issue number, then put it in. If you don't, then just leave it out. I've never had anyone say, where's the issue number? This reference is incorrect. So you can leave the issue number out, but if the volume number is not there, then someone might pick up on that. Okay, and then the next thing is the page numbers. So obviously this page number thing is like not correct because with APA, it wants to know on which page does the document start and on which page does the document end. You can again go to the document for that. So often the page number won't be on the first page, but you can see that this is page 2, so you can just put page 1 in there, and then go to the last page, and then you'll see that's page 15. Sometimes what some journals do is as the articles come in, they publish them online. And then once they have the entire issue ready, then they will publish it as the full issue and then the page numbers will change. But if it's like this, this might have been like an online article only. That's why it's just page 1 to 15. But if this is all the information you have in the document, then that's what you use. No one's going to come and say, these page numbers are not correct or whatever. But if the page numbers are not there, then it is going to be a problem. Okay, is anyone stuck at this stage, or have you managed to fill in all these details from the type of document up to the pages? Okay, I will assume that everyone is fine. So the next thing is the abstract. So this abstract was obviously in the metadata of the document. That's why Mendeley picked up on it. But really, we all know that we don't need abstracts, right? Because we don't need abstract in our reference list or whatever. So you can just leave this open in most cases. Then you can put in tags if you want to. Tags will help you when you search through your Mendeley library. I don't use tags because Mendeley search is really good even without the tags. And then the next thing I would be concerned about is the URL, especially if I'm going to use APA referencing. So sometimes the URL will be on the document itself. So you'll see here on the first page, the URL of the document is, so you can actually copy it and just paste it into the URL here. Or sometimes Mendeley will automatically pick up on this DOI here. So if you see that this DOI is filled in, then you don't actually need to worry about the URL, because that's what APA wants. It wants the DOI of the document. And then here you will see your actual file that you've uploaded. So the name of your PDF that you've uploaded from your library. Okay, so that's a journal article. Are there any questions at this stage?
Morning again, Odell. I just wanted to find out, what are tags? So just about the author and author keywords, what you were talking about tagging the journals. What actually is that?
So the tags you can use for yourself. So let's say your library is going to grow like really big eventually, and you want to be able to search through the documents. Then you can put in these tags, and it'll be part of what Mendeley will search. So when you put something in the search bar here, it searches all these details that you've put into the document here, these bibliographical details, but it also searches within the article itself, provided that the article is not a scanned PDF. So the tags is just another piece of information that Mendeley can use in the search. I don't know if that makes sense.
Yes, it does. Thank you.
All right. Is everyone comfortable with the journal article? Can we move on to the a technical report, because that would also be a PDF. I hope everyone has a technical report. Okay, so I'm not going to use the add button this time. I'm just going to drag my document, because I also want to show you how to do that. Let me just find my technical report first. There we go. Okay, so this is my technical report. It's an OECD report. So I'm just going to drag it into my my Mendeley library. Okay, there it is. Okay, so this is an example of a technical report. So it's not, for instance, a working paper. It's not a journal article. It's just something that's like authored by an organization, you know, like the United Nations or the World Bank or whatever. So a good thing with the technical reports is to, when you find them on the internet, the first thing I do is, after saving the PDF, is I actually copy and paste the URL. Sometimes the URL will be in the metadata of the document, and then Mendeley will automatically pick up on it, but sometimes it won't. And the thing about referencing, a good principle to remember is, because people often, you know, worry about the details of the references. But a good principle to remember is, if someone reads my document, will they be able to find this reference, give it with the information that I've given them? So if you have like very vague details about the report, or, you know, there are like 100 types of the same type of report online, then that doesn't help people. But if you actually put in the URL, it gives them a very specific place to go and look for the report. So for reports, I like to put in the URL. So I'm going to start from the top again. So Mendeley has picked up that this is a book. We know that it's not a book, so I'm going to put it as a report. And then the title is Revenue Statistics in Africa. So this is a 2019 publication, so this is why Mendeley put the date in here. So sometimes if there are dates like this, what I like to do is I either put a colon or I'll put a comma, and then put in the dates. Or you can just put it in as it is there. I'm just going to put a comma in here. So just remember that whichever way you put it in here, that's the same way it'll come out in your bibliography. Okay, so just put a title that's specific, but, you know, also you don't want to like copy like a whole abstract or whatever. Okay, here's another thing here that they do sometimes, is they sometimes tell you how to reference it. Okay, so this is the title they want to see in the document. Let me just change this. So Africa 2019, and then they actually put a colon in there. They don't always do this, as you know. So you'll just sort of use your discretion, but make sure that people can actually find this document. So then the next thing is the authors. So you'll see that there's no particular person who has drafted this document. And even here in the Please Cite This publication as they give us like the names of the organizations who have authored this. So with this, you'll remember that when we did the journal article, we put a comma. So you put the surname, then you did a comma, and then you put the first names. So when we put in a document that's drafted by an organization, we don't put that comma in because the comma tells Mendeley that this is a person. So I just put in whatever the name of the author is, and that's how it'll come out in the document. So you can even put in an organization that has like two names or be like the World Bank. If I do that, and then Mendeley picks it up as an institution or organization. But if I put the comma in, then Mendeley is going to think it's a person. And then what it's going to do is if I put it in my citation, so you'll also see what it looks like in my author list, it's going to think that this is a person whose first name is Bank and whose second name is World. So just be sure not to put the comma in there when you reference organizations. So for this document, they say you can put in OECD or ATAF or whatever. So you put in whatever you have in your document. If it's a person who authored that technical report, then you add their names like you added it in the journal article. Okay, so then you'll see there's no journal entry here because this is not a journal article. We've told Mendeley that it's a report. And they've given us the year of publication, which is 2019. And then for reports, I often don't include pages because a report starts at page 1 and it ends at whatever page it ends. So it doesn't give us any useful information about that. Pages are important for journal articles, and it's also important in edited volumes. You'll see just now when we add authors from an edited volume. With a journal article, I leave it out. With a report, sorry, I leave it out. If you leave it in here, it's going to come out in Mendeley and it's going to be a completely useless piece of information, or it's going to come out in your Word document. Okay, and then it's got the normal details again. So it picked up the abstract, which we really don't need. But then because this is a report, I actually want to put in the city. So here they tell us that this was published in Paris. Sometimes there is no city in the document, but you can always look where the organization is based. So I know if I reference an ILO document, International Labour Organization, I put in Geneva. I know if I reference a United Nations document, I put in New York because that's where their headquarters are. But sometimes it will be in the document and then you use whatever city they give you. If not, then just use your discretion. So if I, for example, reference a document from, let's say, the Department of Social Development or National Treasury, then I'll put the city in as Pretoria because I know that's where those organizations are situated. All right. Then another detail here will be the institution. So here I'll again put in the OECD because this is the institution. Sometimes you'll have people who write technical reports for organizations. In that case, the institution and the author will be different because the author will be the person who authored the document, and then maybe they are someone who authored it for the World Bank or for the OECD or what have you. And then the last thing again is the URL. Okay. Is anyone struggling with their technical document? Okay, so we are fine then on technical documents. So again, I'll just repeat, if you really don't know what type of document you have in front of you, then just use the report and put in the name, put in the URL, and it'll come out as a report in your bibliography. Okay. I'm just ticking off the documents here. Okay, so the next thing we'll add is a working paper. I hope everyone has a working paper. Let me just find my working paper. Here's a working paper. All right. So this is my working paper. I know that it's a working paper because it says working paper series. What I also want to open for you here is I'm going to add another one that I also want to show you. Okay, we'll come to this one later. Okay, so because this is a working paper, I'm going to tell Mendeley that this is a working paper. All right, so you can see Mendeley's picked up some metadata here. I can already see some mistakes. So this document, for instance, is not called South Africa CSG, but the title is here. So I'm just going to put my title in. Okay, so once your title is in, you can go to the authors. Okay, the authors look like they are fine. Or am I missing someone? Michael Ard Carter is one person, okay, and then Ingrid Woolard. Sometimes you'll see that the authors have these special characters. You can't actually include special characters in Mendeley, but what I do is I go to my Word document and then I'll insert the special character into my Word document and then copy it from there. So this is this E that I don't know what they call it in real life. So I just copy it from there and then paste it in here. And that way you make sure that your author actually comes out the way it is on the document. Okay, so then they ask for the year. This looks like a 2008 document, a 2006 document. Okay, they've swapped these two around. Okay, so Mendeley has it as a 2006 document. This is not a journal article, so I'm removing the issue. And working papers will also have useless page numbers, so I remove the pages as well. What's really important for the working paper is the working paper series and the working paper number. Okay, so again, yeah, just on this, so you'll see that in the previous document, we didn't have this issue here. So this issue came up, well, it's gone now, but this issue came up here because that was what was in the metadata of the document. So that's what Mendeley picked up on. So whatever Mendeley picks up, it'll put in here. So sometimes if it thinks it's a journal article, it'll put the journal article name there. But if it's not a journal article, you need to take it out. But as long as it's empty, it means that it won't read into your Word document, so that's fine. Okay, so again, you can go to city. So I know that this Solderu unit is in Cape Town. Well, in fact, here's the recommended citation again. So I'm just going to put Cape Town in here. And then the institution is, I'll put in Solderu. Then the working paper number is, usually they have the working paper number / the year. So they've swapped those two around here. So here they actually have the year first, which we know is 2006. And then the working paper number is 08. So I'm just going to put 08 in there. And then the series is this over here. Every working paper series will have a series name. So in this case, it's the Southern Africa Labour and Development Research Unit. It's their working paper series. So I'm just going to put this in as the Southern Africa Labour and Development Research Unit. So again, don't fret too much about the details, as long as someone will be able to find your document if they look at your bibliographical details. Again, you can put in the URL if you want to, but because this is a working paper and I've literally given my reader all of these details, I'm sure they'll be able to find this on the internet if they just do like a quick Google search. If you do have the URL, you're welcome to paste it in there as well. Okay, so I just have another type of document here that is a working paper type document. Sometimes they also call discussion papers. So if I find a discussion paper, I also load it as a working paper because it'll have the same type of format. It'll have a number, it'll have a year, and then there'll be a particular group of people or an organization who publishes the paper. Okay, so I'm gonna add this as a working paper. Okay, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. There are 5 authors here. Andries Besaidenout, Grace, Sarah, Kirsten, and John Thorburn. This is a 2003 document. Mendeley has already picked up that for me. Then, where shall I say, where is this from? Johannesburg. This is from a discussion. The institution. It's number 13. And then I'm just going to call the series this Globalization and Poverty in South Africa. Another useful thing to do here is, sometimes you don't know what to put where. So one thing to do is to actually do a Google Scholar search of the article and then see who it's been cited by. Let me just use this one as an example. I hope it's been cited by someone. So you'll see here, there's this little cited by information little thingy. So I'll usually click on that because these are all the people who have referenced this particular article that I'm trying to put into my library now. And I'll just click on some of the references to see how they referenced it. So if I go to their reference list, who is this Andries Besaidenout? So it'll be Besaidenout. Okay, so here you can see how they've referenced this document. Okay, yeah, so they've called it Globalization and Poverty Discussion Paper, for instance, and they've said it's in Norwich, which I don't see on the document, but it just gives you like an idea of how other people have referenced the document if you are unclear on the details, or if there's not enough details on the document itself for you to fill it in with. Okay, everyone comfortable with the working paper? Okay, the next thing I want to do is a statute or legislation. Okay, let me just find my statute or legislation here. Okay, there it is. I'm going to use this one. Okay, so what I have here is the Labor Relations Act. And I'm going to tell Mendeley that this is a statute. Okay, so I'm not a lawyer, so I don't know all these details, but I try to fill in as much as I can based on what I see on the document. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to call the act by its name. So it is the Labor Relations Act of 1995. So just remember that people need to be able to find it. That's all they need to be able to do. And then I'm gonna call my author the Department of Labor, because I would imagine that they are the people who are in charge of this sort of act. With this sort of thing, you really want to think about how it's going to look in your list. So you could, for example, say Office of the President, but that might not look very nice, like in an in-text reference. Or you can say South Africa, 1995, which might also be really silly. So I usually just try and put the department if it's a South African thing, because I know South African departments. But if not, then just sort of use your discretion with this. Oh, okay. Okay, so what I need to do here is I actually need to click on here to tell Mendeley this is an institution. Otherwise, it puts that comma in for me. So publication, I'm not going to put a publication there. The year is 1995. Volume, no. Issue, no. Pages, no. What I am going to put in is maybe this number, statute number 66 of 1995. And then maybe you could put the URL in as well. I, for one, don't know how to read all these acts, but I have cited them in my documents. But what I do is I just make sure that people know which act it is and what version of the act I'm using. So, I mean, number 66 of 1995, saying it's the Labor Relations Act of 1995, I think is relatively sufficient. But you can also, again, use your discretion there. Depending on the type of referencing style that you choose for your document, some of these details may or may not come out. So you'll just decide for yourself there. Are there any questions at this stage? Okay, then one last document that I want to show you that I did not put on the list, my apologies, is a thesis or a master's dissertation. And theses and dissertations, by the way, are really good if you're trying to figure out how to do something, because they give you specific details on methodology that you won't necessarily find like in a journal article, where the point is just to get to the results. But if you do have a thesis, this is a UCT thesis that I have here. Mendeley does have a thesis option. And then you will put in the details as you normally would. So this is also good if you want to cite yourself after you finished your degree. And a lot of people do cite theses, especially if the research is very groundbreaking. I'm going to insert the name of the student. There's no publication year. The year is 2008. And the pages is just going to be 1 to whatever. So there's no point in putting in page numbers. The department I see here is the Faculty of Commerce. If there's a department of whatever, you can put that in as well. And then the university is the University of Cape Town. Okay, and then for type, you can put in whatever type of degree it is. Sometimes people don't put their degrees on their front pages, so then you don't know. But if you do have it there, you can say it's a Doctor of Philosophy, a Master's of Commerce, a Master of Laws, or whatever other types of theses there are. Okay, so that's a thesis. Okay, so next I want to move on to the books. Sorry, are there any other questions at this stage? Okay, I will assume that everyone is still together. So I hope you can see my video still. But I just want to show you 2 books that I have here. So one is an academic book that's authored by a single author. So you'll see that there's a single author name on this book. And then the table of contents will just be like a normal looking table of contents, right? And then you'll have an edited volume. An edited volume will usually say that it's edited by someone. So it'll have an editor, right? And then on the inside, you will see that each of the chapters have a separate author. So with the previous books, the chapters didn't have authors because the entire book was authored by one person. With edited volumes, such as this one, it means that one editor took chapters from different people and they put them together in this edited volume. So that's why each of these authors have, each of these chapters have a different author. What I'm going to start with is I'm going to start with this book that has a single author. And because I don't have an e-version of this book, which means I can't import a PDF version of this book into my Mendeley library, I need to add the reference manually. So next to the add button, you'll see that there's a little arrow there, and then there's an add entry manually button. Okay, and then it brings up this dialog box for you. So the first thing you need to do is tell Mendeley that you're adding a book, right? And then the title of the book will be whatever the title of the book is. So you can insert the name of the title of your book. So the name of my book is The New Black Middle Class in South Africa. And the author is Roger Southall. So this will just be a normal author like we did with the journal articles. And then you'll have to look for the year that the book was published in. So I will assume that you all know where to find this on the inside sleeve of your book. And then pages, I'm not going to put in the pages because it's going to be 1 to 100 or 1 to 1000. So it's not really giving me useful information. But what I want to put in is the city and also the publisher. So this book was published in, it looks like it was published in Pretoria, Sunnyside Park. And then there's no editor because there's only one author. And this is the first edition. If it's the first edition, you generally won't put an edition on, but you'll know from certain textbooks, for instance, they'll say it's the first edition, or they'll say it's the second or the third or whatever edition. In that case, you can put in the edition that you're working with. And then there are no editors here. Like I said, it's a single authored book. And then I'm going to put in the name of the publisher, which is Yakana Titles, I hope. Okay. If you are not clear on what to put in here, then again, Google the book. Usually the book will be like on an Amazon page or whatever, and you'll also be able to see these details. You'll be able to see who the publisher is or whatever, if you can't find these details. Sometimes also what happens is, maybe you take a book from the library, but then you didn't take all these details and the book is now back to the library and then you don't know what to put in here. So a good thing to do is just to Google the book, because usually they'll be sold online somewhere as well. And on the page where they sell the book, you'll be able to see all the details, like who's the publisher of the book, etc., etc. So once you've put this in, then you can click save. If you have a ebook, that'll be great, because then it means you somehow have the ebook in your library. So what you'll see here is this reference won't have the PDF icon like the other books have, because I can't actually open this document here. I don't have the document here. I have this document here, obviously, but this one I don't, because I added it as a manual entry. So just another thing, a good habit to get into when using Mendeley is to put in all the details the first time you put your article in, so that if you do need to go back and find the book again or the article again or whatever, then you know exactly where to find it. Also, if you don't do that, then your reference list or your bibliography in Word is going to be incomplete. And then you're going to have to go through that process to check which of your references are not complete, and then go back and fix them on Mendeley. So this was how you added a book that's authored by 1 or 2 or 3 people, but not edited. Does anyone have a question on books?
I have a question. It might seem a little stupid, but do we reference textbooks and like normal books the same?
Yes, you would. Unless your textbook is your textbook authored by like one or two people, or do the chapters have different authors?
It's two authors.
Yeah.
The whole book.
Okay, yeah. So then you'll put that in exactly the way I did here. But then you just want to check maybe if it's a second or a third edition book, then you want to make sure that you fill that in the edition.
Okay, thanks.
All right. So the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to move on to the edited volume. So with the edited volume, every chapter has a different author, right? So we're going to need a few more details. Okay. So what I need to do again is I'm going to just choose which chapter you're going to reference in your edited volume first before you start. And then you're gonna again add a manual entry because we don't have a soft copy of this book, so we have to add it manually. So in type, instead of saying book, I'm going to say book section. Okay, and then the title that I'm going to put in is the title of the chapter that I'm referencing, so not the title that is on the front of the book. Okay, so once you've chosen your chapter, you put in the title of your chapter. Okay, so once you have your chapter name, then you're going to need to put in the name of the chapter author. So the person who authored that particular chapter. Okay, and then Mendeley is going to ask you for the name of the book. So here you will put in the name that is on the front page of the book. Okay, so when you insert this reference into your bibliography in your Word document, it'll then say that this is the author, this is the year it was published, this is the name of the chapter, and then it'll say in, and then it'll put the book title, and then it'll say edited by so and so. But you'll see it when we put it in the reference list. But if you don't put these details in correctly, then Word won't be able to, or Mendeley won't be able to reference your document correctly. So because the book was published in 1 year, you'll just put in the year the book was published. And then the pages here are very important. Because it's an edited volume, it would mean that the particular chapter that you are referencing will start on one page and it'll end on another page. So you're not referencing the entire book. So you need to actually go to that chapter and check what is the first page of that chapter in your book. Usually you'll be able to take that from the table of contents, but then you'll also need to check where does the chapter end. So you can actually go look in your book to see on what page does that chapter end. And in my book it'll be page 49. But a nice way or an easier way to also do this is to look at your table of contents and see, okay, this chapter starts on page 20, the next chapter starts on page 50. So the previous chapter must end on page 49, sort of thing. But just double check it in the book if you have the book on hand, and then you put in those page numbers for the particular chapter. Okay, you can also put in the chapter number. I don't usually do that. You're welcome to do it though. And then this will be the publisher of the book. The city where the book was published. And then this is not like a second edition or something, so I'm not going to put that in. But then it'll ask you for the editors. So the editors and the people who publish the chapters will sometimes be the same people, sometimes it's not. But the editor will, their name will be on the front of the book. So that's the person who you want to put in here. Okay, in my case, the person who edited the book also happened to write the particular chapter that I'm referencing. And then the publisher will be the publisher of the book. Okay, and you can put in the URL if you have it, although I feel like this is sufficient information here for someone to be able to find this reference. Are there any questions on the book section? Did anyone struggle with that? Okay, we'll move on to websites then. So I have two websites open here. Let me use this one. So a website you'll also need to add as a manual reference. If you're doing a website, you want to make sure that there's no other way to get this information. So maybe there isn't a PDF version of this website somewhere at the bottom of the page or whatever. But if this is like the only place you can get your information, then you use a website. A website is also a manual entry because we don't have a PDF version of the document. So then you want to tell Mendeley that it is a web page. And a web page can also be very tricky. So again, you need to use your discretion. You want to also check that there's no person who's authored the particular thing that you are citing, because that'll also depend who you put in the author's box there. Okay, so this is the ILO's decent work agenda or statement or whatever, and I haven't till this day found an actual PDF version of this document or of what they have on this page. So in my title, I need to give it a title that makes sense. So I'm just going to call it the report of the Director General Decent Work. So you need to look at what's on your web page and put in a title that's appropriate, I suppose. Okay. So I also don't see a author here or a single person who's authored this page. So I'm going to put in my author as the ILO. With these organizations or these institutions, sometimes what people will do is, they'll put in the full name of the organization, and then they'll want to reference it going forward. But really they want to abbreviate it going forward. But really, if you are putting something in as the International Labour Organization in your in-text reference, if I go to your reference list or your bibliography, then it needs to be the International Labour Organization. So whatever you put in text is a reference for what's in your bibliography. So it doesn't make sense to have ILO in your in-text reference and then have International Labour Organization as what's in your bibliography. So just make sure you've got the same thing. If you use ILO here, then just use ILO throughout your document. Okay, so publication, I don't think this is a particular publication. The year, okay, so there's actually a year here, luckily. Sometimes there isn't a year. If there's like no date, then just put in like the current year. For pages, there are no pages here, so I'm not going to put in pages. And then the date axis is very important. So if you don't actually have this year, then referencing a web page is completely useless. So if you do have details on the page that are, or you've put wrong details in your reference that is incorrect, then this date access becomes very important, because then you can say to people, on the date that I accessed it, this is the information that was on the page. So just remember that details on a web page can change as well, and that's why the date that you accessed it is super important. And then of course the URL is important as well, so you can just copy and paste it, and yeah, that's a web page. Are there any questions on a web page? Okay, I will assume that everyone is comfortable with a web page. Are there any questions with any of the other references, or are there any references that you feel like, you know, you'd like to explore but that I haven't added here? You'll see there are many different types of documents that you can include here. There's, for example, newspaper article, which I know is something our students like to do as well. So you'll then just also put in the relevant details that Mendeley asks you for. So the date of publication, the author, the newspaper that published the article. So you can play around and see with your particular references, you know, what type of references you have, and then fill in the details. Okay. So if there are no questions on that, I'm going to move on to the next section, which is annotating documents. Okay, so you can only annotate documents if you have the actual document in your library. So for instance, these books we don't have in our library because we added them manually. This web page, well, it's in the library, but we don't have the document in the library. This web page I also can't annotate because it's not actually in my library. But these PDFs I actually can annotate, unless, of course, it is a unless it's a scanned PDF. So you know, like with scanned PDFs, you know, like the computer can't read the words because the document is scanned in. If it's like that, you won't be able to annotate, although you can, in fact you can, I'm going to show you, but you won't be able to like annotate it as nicely as a document like this, that is clearly like made for, you know, electronic reading. So the first thing I want to show you here is that you can highlight documents. So you can highlight your text and you can choose your color that you want to use for your highlighting. And then you can just highlight as simply as this. It's very easy. You can highlight different parts of your document. You can change your color. Yeah. If you have that scanned PDF, you can highlight rectangle. So if you have a PDF document, Mendeley can't read the words, you won't be able to highlight the text like this. But what you can do is you can highlight, you can create a highlight rectangle where you just pull a rectangle over a particular sentence or whatever paragraph, and you highlight the entire thing. So this is nice if you actually read your documents in Mendeley, which is something I do, because then I know when I look for my references, I know which parts of the document I thought was important or whatever. So I highlight in Mendeley. You can also add notes to your document. So this is, you know, if you want to leave a note for yourself in your document, you can put it in here. So this is the same as, you know, like how you would highlight in Adobe, a PDF document in Adobe. Then you can zoom in, zoom out. Mendeley usually fits the document nicely. But then I also want to show you here by your bibliographical details. There is the notes function here. so here you can also add sort of general notes. So this is a nice place where you can keep notes for yourself. Now I want to show you the, sorry, I'm just gonna unclick this. I usually have my thing on highlight anyway. I just want to show you this search tab quickly, which I didn't talk much about at the beginning. What you can do is you can actually search within a document, and it'll show you, Mendeley will show you how many matches of a particular word or phrase you have in your document. This is useful if you've also, like, let's say that you put a direct quote in your Word document, but then you can't remember the page number. So what you can actually do then is actually put that quote in your search bar, and then Mendeley will take you to the page number where that quote is. If you go back to your library and you search here, then Mendeley is actually going to search your entire library. And it's going to bring up all the documents that have the phrases that you are looking for. So what it'll do is it'll search the titles, it'll search the author names, it'll search the year, it'll search the content of the actual document for those words, and then it'll also search the notes that you've left for yourself. But if you don't want to do like a general search, you can click this little drop down here and then tell Mendeley what do you want to search in particular. So let's say you want to search only in your notes. Then you can search whatever you have put in your notes or what have you. I don't usually search with notes and stuff. I don't use this note function a lot, but I do just search the entire library. If I am looking for something and I don't know which author wrote it, I'll just do a general search. But if I know which author wrote whatever I'm looking for, I'll then go and click on the author here, and then I'll search within the documents that this author has written. And then it'll only give you the documents that this author has written to search in. Okay, I just want to log out of this account and go into my actual real account because I want to show you the search button, how useful it is. Okay, so this is my actual Mendeley library. I have like years worth of documents in here. So there are certain authors that I reference a lot. So I know, so-and-so writes on a particular topic, and if I'm looking for something that they've written, I'll just click on their name, and then Mendeley will give me everything that they've written on the particular document. You can also filter through the document. So let's say I know this author, for instance, recently wrote something about COVID, what happened in COVID. So I know it's a very recent publication. So then I can click on year, and then Mendeley will filter this by the year, and I'll see, oh, okay, here's the latest publication, that this person wrote. This is what I'm looking for. Yeah, so again, you can search, the entire library. There we go. You can search the entire library, and it'll literally look, search for whatever you're looking in your entire library. So for instance, here it's picking up every single document that has the word in. So I probably don't want that. I could just like remove it. And search for these particular ones. Okay, are there any questions on the sharing, on the annotating, on the highlighting, on the commenting? Is everyone comfortable up to this stage?
Yes, I think.
Okay. I'll also assume that you guys managed to add the documents that you brought with you. I hope you did. It'll probably, take like a bit of a, let's say you've already started writing up your research report or whatever. It'll probably take, maybe a while to build up your library to the point where you have all your references in your Mendeley library. But like, I mean, once you have it in, it's like, it's really worth it to have all of this in one place. Yeah. And also just to have a record of the stuff that you've read before, so you know what's in a particular library, and you also start sort of what you know about a particular topic, and it also helps to sort of start building up I suppose a picture of certain types of authors who write on certain things, so the more stuff you add, the more you'll see, oh, okay, so this person tends to write on these particular topics. So now I know if I'm doing something on youth unemployment or whatever, I'm going to go look at this guy's documents first or whatever. Yeah. Okay, so that's everything that we have on the program up to this point. Can we take the comfort break, which should end at 10:40? Do you guys want to take the full 13 minutes, or should we come back at 10:37? I'm happy with 10:40 if you are.
10:40 is fine.
Okay, perfect. I'll see you guys back here at 10:40 then. I'm just going to wait 1 minute in case anyone has a question to ask me while everyone goes on their break.
Odile, I was going to say that I'm going to have to excuse myself at 11. I've
Okay.
got a meeting between 11 and 11:30.
Okay, no worries. There will be a recording of this as well, so you'll be able to watch the rest.
Okay, thanks. Thank you.
Cool. Okay, no questions then. Okay, I'm gonna be back recording also. Okay. So Godfrey asked me, Kumi, I'm gonna come to you in a minute. Godfrey asked me, can I insert references directly to my Word document that are not in my library? For example, with Zotero, if I insert references that are not in my library, whenever I update my reference list, it automatically removes them. Also now, because I use Mendeley in my current proposal, or should I put all my documents in the Mendeley library? Yeah, you should put all your documents in the Mendeley library. So remember, Word is talking to this desktop app. So whatever's not in the desktop app cannot be communicated back to your Word document. So it's important that you have your documents in your Mendeley library if you wanted to reflect in your Word document. I hope that answers your question. Sorry, Godfrey. If you can type, that's also fine. Nkume?
Yes, Odile, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Yes, I just wanted to indicate that can I please be excused at around 11:05?
That's fine.
Okay, thanks very much.
Perfect. Okay. Okay, so what we've done so far is we have looked at the Mendeley interface and the Word plugin. We've added PDF files and we've added manual references. And then I showed you how to highlight documents and comment in a document, and also how to use the notes function. And then I showed you the search function, which becomes very useful when your library grows or becomes very large. Okay, so what we're going to do from now to 12 or to 11:30 at least, is we are going to now actually work in the Word document. So I can show you how to insert a reference into your Word document. And then we are also going to insert a bibliography. And then we'll have like a Q&A if you guys have any questions to ask. Okay, Nkume, is that an old hand, or do you have another question?
That's an old hand.
Okay, perfect. Okay, can everyone see my screen? Is there anyone who can't see my screen? Somebody? Okay, perfect. Thank you. Sorry, I should actually just keep the chat open here. I can actually see the chat and the screen now. So if you do want to ask anything in the chat, you can do that. Okay, so I'm just gonna make my Mendeley window a bit smaller and my Word document a bit bigger. So this is a blank Word document. If you have a Word document where you have already started writing and you already have manual references in them, you're just gonna have to work through that document to make sure you delete all your manual references and you actually insert the Mendeley references. But they are basically, okay, also important to remember here is that this is like a computer, right? So you need to give it the information that you wanted to put in. It can't think for itself, so you need to think for it. So you still need to follow the rules of referencing in your Word document, right? So Mendeley can't do that for you. So the first thing I want to show you here is how to insert a reference at the end of a sentence, right? So I'm just going to write a sentence and say this is a sentence about something, right? Okay, so normally what you would do is if you insert a reference, you would insert the reference before the full stop, right? And you'd have a space between the last word and the start or the bracket, the first bracket of your reference. So it's important that you do that here. If you don't do it, it's going to come out wrong. And then people are going to mark your references as wrong. So you can just click spacebar and then choose which reference you want to put in. So I'm going to put in Wartella. So I'm going to go to my references bar, and then I'm going to click insert citation from my Mendeley bar. So this is then what opens up the Mendeley citation editor. So then I'm going to say Wartella, this is Wartella. I'm going to click on it. So now Word has inserted it there for me. And then I'm going to click OK. Sometimes this will come up if you're taking too long, then just click retry. Sometimes it won't happen. Okay, so now you have Wartella in your document here. If you put Wartella outside of your full stop, it's going to be wrong. So make sure that you are putting it in the right place. Okay. Is there anyone that is not comfortable with that? Or anyone who just struggled with that? Sorry, I don't know where the thing just went with the participants, but somewhere, I suppose. There it is. Okay. Okay, so that's inserting a reference at the end of a sentence. So a good principle to remember here is to never manually edit your references, right? Okay, and I'm going to show you how to sort of manipulate this reference so you don't have to edit the actual reference. So when I say that you don't want to manually edit your references, is I mean you don't want to go into this bracket and change stuff, right? So let's say you put the wrong date here, you don't want to change this to 2007 year. Because what that does, first of all, Mendeley is going to give you this, this error message where it's telling you that you are manually editing a reference. Do you want to keep your manual edit, or do you want to undo the manual edit? And then it's going to give you that, error every single time. Every single time you open your document. But another reason why you also don't want to do it is because, let's say that you realize that this Vortela reference actually had the wrong date and you now want to change it to 2010 instead, right? Then you have to do that in your reference library, okay? And then if I refresh here, then it should change the date on the side. So can you see the date has now changed to the new date that I've updated in the library? So this is fine if you have one page and one sentence. But if you, let's say, have your full research report or your full dissertation with like 100,000 words, and you've referenced Vortela like 50 times in that document, then you don't want to go back to each reference manually and change it. You want to be able to do this where you just go to your library and you make one change in your library, and then it changes all the references in your document. What happens if you manually edit your reference is that particular one that you edited then won't take on the new change. So if you manually edit this and then you want to change a detail, it means that it won't change that one that you manually edited. So always try to not manually edit your references as a rule. It is very important. Okay, but now I want to show you how to insert a reference when it is part of a sentence, right? So maybe we want to say that Vortela said. Okay, so what some people do, because they are lazy, is they do this. They then insert Vortela, and then it's wrong. Or alternatively, what they do is they do this, and then it's also wrong, right? Because you know that this is not what your sentence is supposed to look like if Vortela is part of the sentence. So what some people also do is they then do this, or rather they do this, which is literally the worst thing you can do. So now again, you've manually edited that reference, which you don't want to do. So it means that if I change something in my library here in Mendeley, then it means that this change is not going to take effect for this particular reference again that I added manually. So what I want to do is I actually want to write Vortela out in my sentence. And then what I want to do with this particular reference here is I want to say edit the citation, and then you click on the citation and then you tick suppress author and then okay. So what that then does is it takes out the author and it just gives you the year. So that's if you want to make sure that or if you want to insert a reference that's part of a sentence, but you don't want to manually edit that reference. So you rather write out the word of or the name of the author, and then you say suppress author. And that way you make sure that whatever details you change here still takes effect in your actual Word document. Okay. Is anyone uncomfortable with that? Do I need to show that again?
Please do it again.
Okay, I'm going to do it with a different reference, right? So let's use Nam and Kim. Okay, so I want to insert Nam and Kim. And I also want to say Nam and Kim said something important. Okay, but this is wrong because I can't have Nam and Kim in brackets at the beginning of my sentence or part of my sentence. So what I then do is I put in Nam and Kim for myself in my document. So I'll say Nam and Kim. And then I'll edit this reference using the edit button. So it says insert or edit. I click on the name of the authors and then I say suppress author and then okay. And then it gives me just the date. It takes out the name of the authors. Anyone still uncomfortable with that? Should I do it again?
I'm okay. I'm okay.
Okay, perfect. Okay, so the reason why I do this is because if you edit your references manually, then you are literally defeating the purpose of using this system, which is to automate your references as far as possible. So you want to make sure that you want to be able to change something with the click of a button. And once you start editing these references manually, it means that you're taking away the ability to do that. Okay, so please make use of the suppress author button rather than editing stuff inside the bracket itself. Okay, so then you'll know that sometimes we need to put in direct quotations, right? Okay, I don't know what error that is. So let's say I want to say, I'm going to say the global trends. Okay, so you know that if you put in a direct quote, you actually need to put in the page number of the authors. So what you're going to do is you're going to insert the details of the authors, and then you're going to insert the page number. So I took that here in this document from page 3, which I can see at the bottom here. And this reference is Bezaida Note and them. So I'm going to insert Bezaida Note and them. Then I'm going to click on them, and then I'm going to click on the author again, the same way you did when you suppress the author. And then you'll see here's a button for a space where you can put in the page number. You put in your page number and you say, okay. And then it inserts the page number for you. Is everyone comfortable with that, or should I do that again? Okay, I'll just do it again. I'll take something from Nam and whoever. Okay, let's say they also said negatively correlated to occupational stress. And then I want to see on which page did I take this from. So this is from page 6. And this is Nam and Kim. Okay, and I took that from page 6, insert the page number, and then okay. And then please make sure you put your full stop at the end of your sentences. Okay, is there anyone that is uncomfortable with the page numbers? Okay, I will assume that everyone is covered there. Okay, so sometimes what you want to do is you want to put in a reference where you suppress the author, but you're also taking a direct quote. So you also want to put in a page number. So that's what I'm going to do now. I'm going to say, let's see who's here. Okay, let me use Wotela again. Okay, so I'm gonna say that Wotela said okay, so here what I've done is I've taken a direct quotation from Wotela, but I'm also using him as part of the sentence, so I need to suppress the author as well. So I'm going to insert a page number and suppress the author at the same time. So I took this from page 35 of Wotela. So please make sure you put a space between the reference and the name of the author, otherwise it's wrong. So then I'm going to say, okay, I want to put in Wotela. And I took this from page 35, and I'm suppressing the author because he is part of the, his name is part of the sentence itself. So then it'll give you the year, and it'll put the page number in brackets. Is anyone uncomfortable with that?
I'm okay.
Okay, perfect. Okay, so let's say, okay, must the page number be inserted manually? Yes, it must, because remember that you've got the entire document in Mendeley. So Mendeley won't know which page you are referring to. And sometimes, so let's say in the instance of like a book where you don't even have the document in Mendeley, it knows even less about which page numbers even exist within that document. So then you have to put the page number in manually. So there's no way to get this to be automatic. Okay, so I just want to show you also how to insert two references in the same sentence. So let's say I want to insert Arguero and them and Bezuidenhout and them. Then I'm going to just put my cursor where I want the reference to go again. Then I'm going to say Bezuidenhout, click, and then Arguero and them, right? And then click. So you can fill up this whole bar with names, and then you click OK. And then it'll include them in the same bracket. Okay, then another thing I want to show you is merging two references, right? So let's say that you were busy writing, you inserted Arguero initially, and then at some point, you decided, oh, maybe I should also cite Bezuidenhout and them here. And then what happens is it'll then create two brackets as if the references are two separate references. But we know that's wrong according to the rules of referencing. So what you want to do is you want to highlight both those, and then you want to click the merge citations button. So that's how you merge two citations. And then another thing is, let's say that you do have this existing bracket already, but you want to add someone to the bracket. So then you can just click anywhere within the bracket, and then you can say edit citation, the insert or edit button. And then you just add your last author or the other authors that you want to add, and you click OK. And then Mendeley will add those to the brackets. So just another thing then on this is that you'll see that there's a particular order to the references. So Mendeley will choose that automatically based on the citation style that you chose. So if you also, I'm using APA here, so I think the rule with APA is it goes by alphabetical order, and then it sorts according to the date. So you'll see here it's Arguero, Bezuidenhout, and then Wortella. So with some referencing styles, they go by date and then by alphabet. So if it was like if it was date first, then Wortella would go first because his date is the most recent, and then it would be Arguero, and then it would be Bezuidenhout. So you can also just play around with the citation styles to make sure that you've got the right citation there. But one thing that I can tell you, especially if you're going for examination, is that it's not as much about the particular referencing style that you have used as much as it is about your referencing style being consistent throughout the document. So some people will, for instance, if they are manually referencing, sometimes they use this ampersand symbol, and sometimes they'll use and like this in the bracket. So it's important that or they'll use and in one sentence, and then in the next sentence they do this. So what Mendeley does is, if you're putting stuff in brackets, it just allows you to avoid that. But then if you are suppressing the author, you just need to make sure that you follow the rules of your particular citation style. But it does help you to avoid that, in the brackets. And if your supervisor says, your referencing is not right or whatever, you can just choose a different referencing style and see, what works for you. So I, for instance, there's this rule that APA does where if you have two authors in your library or in your document that have the same surname, it'll include the person's initial. And like I've read about this extensively now, so it is actually correct for APA to do that. So APA will do this, for example. Let's say I have two Wartellas, but they're not the same Wartella, then it'll do this in the document. And this is not wrong according to APA, but it's just that people don't know the rule. So then they mark it as incorrect. So what I've done now is I've actually just chosen a different citation style, because no one's going to know that it's not APA, because the citation style looks similar to APA, but maybe there are different details here and there that are a little bit different. But I can tell you that most examiners are not fussy about referencing unless the referencing is really bad and it's inconsistent across the document. Okay. And then the next thing is I've already showed you how this refresh button works, right? Let me just change Wartella back to his initial date. So I currently have all my Wartellas as 2008 here, as 2010 in my document. So I'm just going to change that back to 2008. And if I click refresh, then it should update all of the Wartellas for me. Okay. Then, oh yes, this is what I need to show you. Sometimes you also need to include a reference in a footnote for whatever reason, right? You can also do that with Mendeley. So if you insert footnote and then you say, so the exact same principles apply. So you just put your cursor wherever you want it to go, and then you insert your citation. And then Mendeley will follow the formatting that you have for the particular footnote. So you'll see that the text is, for instance, smaller than what's in the main text. Another thing to see here is, can you see this looks odd now? It says Labor Relations Act 1995, 1995. So what I'm actually going to do here is, someone might pick that up as an error. So I'm actually going to take out this 1995 in my title of my reference, and then I'm going to refresh it. So it just like looks normal. So, I mean, no one knows what's in your Mendeley library or how you've formatted your citations in your library. All they can see is what comes out in your document. So if you feel like your reference is maybe not coming out the way you want it to go, then maybe just try, load it as a different type of reference or whatever. If you see the journal articles work out nicely, then, use that. Like I said, I use reports. If I don't know what else to use, I choose my type of document as a report. And so far, that's always come out the way I want it to come out. Okay. Are there any other questions on inserting citations in your actual text? Or does everyone feel like they have a good idea of how to do this? Okay. I am going to assume that everyone is okay. All right, so the next thing I want to show you is the bibliography. And just before I do that, I just want to show you a little formatting trick for your documents. If you go to your home tab, there's this little symbol that looks like this. I don't know what you call it. In fact, I do. I wrote it down somewhere, but I don't remember what it is. If you click it, it gives you these little pieces, things in your document. If you turn it off, it turns it off. What a lot of people do in their documents, and if you have like a supervisor like me who's pedantic about formatting, I don't like it when people, for example, leave 2 spaces in between their words. But you can't see that sometimes, if you're just looking at your document the way it is. So if you click this button, it actually shows you what is happening in your document. So it is actually a really powerful thing to use. you know, especially if you've written all your stuff and you now just want to fix the formatting. So please do switch this on when you do start formatting. Also, when you insert your references, you know, to make sure that you do actually have a space between the word and a reference, you know, and you're not doing this sort of thing. But what this also allows you to do is, people do this in their documents to go to the next page, which is not a good thing to do. But if you click on this button, you can actually see that someone has done this. So I like to do this when I look at my students' documents before they like go to panel or whatever. A way to avoid this is to just use page breaks. And if you're using page breaks, you want to see where they are. So that's why you want to use this little button here, because it's showing you all the hidden details of your document. So to use a page break, you go to insert, and then let me just open this up so you can actually see. You'll see there's page breaks there. If you go to layout, there are also section breaks. So this is, for instance, let's say you want to put in a page that has a different layout. So maybe you're putting in a big table that you need a landscape layout for, then you insert but you don't want your whole document to change to landscape. Then you insert a section break, and then you'll change the orientation of that page. So that means only the section changes to become like that. But anyway, those are section breaks. That's not relevant here. I'm going to take out that section break. What I want to show you is the page break. So the page break just says that I don't want anything else further on this document. The next page needs to start, or whatever content is going to be written going forward needs to start on the next page. So this is good if you are, let's say, starting a new chapter, because then you get to actually say, okay, this is now chapter 2, you know, if this was chapter 1. So this is just good practice, you know, to do. So this is also good for your bibliography page, because your bibliography page needs to start on a new page. So you can insert a page break. It starts on a new page. So I'm just going to give you an idea of what the full document looks like now. So this is what it looks like. My page 1, I've got a page break. I've got chapter 2. And now what I'm going to put on page 3 is references. Okay. And then just before I insert the bibliography, I also want to show you the styles here. So you can use the headings rather than manually changing all of your titles or your headings in your document. So the references will also usually have a heading the same way your chapters have. But what you want to do is you want to start a new page for your references and then create your references heading. References usually don't have a numbered heading anyway. And then just give a space between the title and where you actually want to insert the bibliography. And then you go to your references tab, and then you say insert bibliography. And then it'll insert your entire bibliography for you. But it'll only insert what you've referenced in the document. So if you haven't referenced a particular author in your document, then they're not going to come up in your reference list. So this is also nice, because I'm sure for those of you who've been to panel, you would have heard people say there's a reference in your reference list, but I can't find it anywhere in the document. So what Mendeley does is, if it's not in your actual reference list, then it removes it from the references. So for instance, I'm going to remove this Labor Relations Act. It's here. So I want to remove it from my document, or I want to remove it from here, but because I've only inserted it once in my document, I expect it to be removed from my reference list as well. So I've deleted it from my main document. And now I'm going to click refresh. And then you'll see that it removes that reference from my bibliography. Are there any questions on the bibliography? Okay, no questions on the bibliography then. Then the last thing I want to show you is changing the citation style. So like I said, yeah, I'm using APA. There's also Harvard, for instance. So if I click Harvard here, then you'll see that it's mostly the same, but it has changed. So you'll see this et al has become like italics. You'll also see here that it's changed around the order of this reference. So it started from the earliest date to the latest date. And then the reference list has also changed to look the way it does now. If you want to find more citation styles, you can click on the style button and then more styles. And then it'll open up Mendeley desktop. And then you'll see there are all these different types of styles here. But these are only the styles that are installed on Mendeley. There is a space where you can download more styles, but I mean, most of what you need will be here. So let's say, I know like Chicago uses like the footnote thing. A lot of the law journals use this. I'm going to say use the style. Okay, so now you can see that it's changed my references. Sorry, let me just turn this off so you can see what's going on here. So now you'll see that it's turned my references into footnotes. So some journals, you know, prefer this sort of thing. With this, you, for instance, need a bit more formatting. So here you'll see that, you know, this can't be this far from the actual word. So you'll have to just remove the spaces between the numbers and the actual references. But I mean, people hardly ever use this. Like I said, this is like a style that a lot of the law journals use. But yeah, that's basically the referencing, different referencing styles. I'm going to change this back to APA. Okay, so this has now changed my references into superscripts. But this is sort of basically what it is, and this is how you can use Mendeley. I don't know if you guys have any questions on anything that we covered today. The best way, obviously, to learn this is to actually do it. So yeah, this is it. It'll save you a lot of time, which will be nice when you have to go for examination or you're on a tight deadline or whatever. Any questions at this stage, or are you covered?
I just want to check from the references on my Word document. I don't have the options to match the citations.
Is it? Are you on a Windows computer?
Yes.
You only have insert or edit.
Yes.
I suspect that there might be, if you click on the insert or edit citation, that dialog box there, is there something that maybe helps you to see what's happening there? I remember using this on a Windows computer as well. Let me just check for you. I don't see something here now. But I know that this little bar is a little bit different on Word versus MacBooks. But let me get back to you. I just wanna, I don't wanna like put a video on while you guys are here. But you can also sort of like Google it because a lot of people struggle with that.
No, I'll do that. Fine.
Okay. Maybe just try to highlight both of the brackets and then right click and see maybe there's something that comes up in the dialog box. Although I doubt it. I doubt that will be there. Yeah, but a different way to do is also just to, you know, put them all, when you load them all into the same bracket. Yeah. Okay. Okay, guys, I'm gonna assume that everyone's covered. If you have any other questions, you're welcome to email me. I think all of you have my email address, but I'll just put it here anyway. And then I'll also send you a link to the recording if you want to go back to it at some point. If you've maybe missed something or whatever. But I can tell you, like, a lot of people use Mendeley around the world. So even if you just Google, you know, do a quick Google search, you're likely to find a solution to your problem. Okay, perfect. So all the best. I'm gonna assume that we can go now. And good luck with your submissions and all that jazz. Augustina, if you want to stay behind quickly, then we can quickly figure out that problem together. Otherwise, yeah, I'll see you guys around.